None of us have approached this as a movie for television. Everyone involved has taken this on as if this were a film for theatrical release. We've really kind of pushed the limits of what you could do.
There's a sword fight in the movie, there's a guy who gets burnt in the movie, there's huge trains in the movie, there's hippopotamuses in the movie, elephants in the movie. It's nuts.
We got to create a lot of different interesting effects based on stuff we've learned doing our big movies that we do.
I only shoot in digital now. I love the format. I think it's the future. I think that we've overcome the things that held it back in the past. It allows us to add more digital effects. I think that it's only a matter of time before the rest of Hollywood follows suit, and we wanted to be ahead of it.
We all love the look of film and the texture of film, but I am so impressed with the high def. There's a lot to be said for the fact that what you see is what you get, which is not always the case with film.
We bring in people with big show experience. Working on a show like this, let's just say the budgets are more modest than on a large feature made for a theatrical release film, which is the challenge for us as visual effects artists.
Many of us have worked together over the years, over the last 10 years or so together on various projects, and we're all really comfortable working together. So we were able to very quickly come out with some really nice stuff.
This group of artists are very committed to this craft. It's really their passion. They truly love what they do. I have to tell them to go home. They would sleep in their chair if they could, some of them. Dean's like that, the producer of the film, and it translates to our guys, and we sort of get a momentum going that way, and that's once again how we kind of extend these shows and get, you know, really top quality out of them.
Can you not see that I'm just a little bit preoccupied?
One of the things that came in right away, that was actually something that came together rather quickly, was this little gem right here, Excalibur. In computer animation, high detailed areas, they are some of the most challenging aspects. Something like this, there are dragons and Gaelic knots. To get this level of detail, it requires some pretty intense calculation and some forethought. The way we made Excalibur come to life so quickly was to shoot as many pictures of the prop that we possibly could, and then use those to trace over inside of the computer. And then first thing I do is create metal. And then you add things on top of that, like reflections. And once you go ahead and you lay in all of this detail work over it, you begin to get to that photorealistic state. When we do our actual shots, the reflections are typically, we grab the actual plate that was filmed, and we'll take that and I'll wrap that around the object, so that when the object moves around in space on top of this plate, it actually appears as though it's in the environment because you're seeing pieces of the world inside of it.
Not now. Okay. I'm not in the mood.
One of the challenges here was we have a basic choreography that we set up just to get the pacing of the shot. We'll then hand it to an animator to now make us feel like Excalibur is a he. It's an ongoing sort of shtick, if you will, that has to be attended to so it's believable, so it's fun, and you get the personality of an inanimate object out of it.
They filmed the live action first without the sword, and Noah Wyle has to pretend that the sword is there, and then I have to put the sword in and animate it to his movements and his eye direction and have it make sense. In traditional animation, you always try and use squash and stretch to make things look alive, but the sword is so rigid that it couldn't do that. It couldn't squash or stretch because then it would start to look like it was made out of rubber instead of made out of steel.
Along with Excalibur was his friend, the pan flute, the magical flute. Again, the same situation. This is what the computer likes to see and what the computer wants to generate. It was necessary with something like this that had the wood pipes and things like that to really get a detailed feeling for how wood really reflects light and how it feels.
The flute was much harder to animate because it has all these little pipes. Each of these pipes here moves to the music. So it could twist and it could bend and smile.
I think I'm doing a pretty good job.
You have.
Well, then when are you gonna, can you stop playing for 1 second, please? When are you gonna start to trust me?
I never get over that thrill of seeing something that I animated actually come to life. And especially with the flute and the sword, where they had to have such distinct personalities, it was really exciting to do that.
It's a defensive action! We're making progress!
We have animals, CGI animals in it. We have rats and bats and stuff like that, and spiders running around. For example, there's a scene where hippopotamuses attack our heroes, and we used animatronic hippos that didn't quite have the realism that we were looking for. So we had to actually take them, and when they open their mouths, we had to actually add weight and musculature to the actual imagery, and which gives it more life and gives it more animation and more realism.
Hello? What is this?
I get this constantly. Hasn't someone done a bat before? Well, yeah, you can do a bat, and you can buy a bat probably off the internet, and you can. It's a bat, but it doesn't do anything. The bats come out of a tunnel and they swirl around and they do all those things. All that has to be set up and designed by our people, and also there's all the physical characteristics of wind and the environment that they're flying around in.
This is one of our bat characters, kind of in a simplistic form. But what we were trying to figure here is, are we going to get that skin to really look like bat skin? So in this test, we use something called subsurface scattering. It describes the way light goes through surfaces that are not completely solid. And the fascinating thing is that in reality, light bounces around inside of things like skin. It hits bone, it hits other things solid inside of the webbing of your hands, and it creates almost a glow.
We labor greatly over, and you may not even see that we did all that stuff, but I can't stop these guys. They're junkies to this stuff, and so they hey, I got subsurface scattering. Well, that's good. We didn't really need to do it, but we have it now, so.
This is how the light would, although not directly illuminating the bat, lighting through the thinner areas of skin, but the thicker areas of skin, like his actual arm, will occlude the light, just like real-world stuff really does.
You still have to, in the case of this show, you have to tell the bats where to go, not to bump into each other, how fast they're going, things like that. There's just the nature of the physical dynamic nature of what a bat does.
The bats were a system of points that are just being emitted from this box right here. And these little dots, you work with those, you get them doing what you want with different fields and forces and expressions, and you can see a good flight pattern developing. There's 6 or 7 bats randomized throughout the points, so that everywhere a point is now a flapping bat of different size, different flap speed.
Those kinds of things are cutting edge, and that is exactly how they do big pictures.
We have to cross that.
If I remember the map correctly, that should be the entrance to King Solomon's treasure chamber, so yes.
We have a scene where the heroes have to go through a cave situation. This is on a big, giant underground environment with lava pools everywhere, and they have to cross across a bridge in this giant environment. The entire environment is primarily a little piece of dirt and a green screen, to which we then had to actually build the entire environment. Everything you see, other than the actual people and the patch of ground they're standing on, is CGI.
This started out with the lava river that was basically right below them, right here. That didn't really give any kind of sense of scale or any kind of drama, so we all got together and decided, let's just create this large cavern with a lava river a mile below. We started off basically with the camera looking down at this lava flow, and then we created a camera move based upon that, which pans up and reveals them on the bridge with everything in the background and the lava, and stepping on the bridge and breaking away rocks.
Our lava is a simulation. We call it a sim. You tell the particles, okay, you're in this environment, you're going down this mountain, you weigh this much, the density of you is given number, and you set all those parameters up and you run the simulation. All those things combine to make it look real and feel real. A good example of how our team works together is the finale of the picture. It takes place in this deep below, within this mountain.
We built one environment. We reused as many elements as we could for as many shots as we could.
What I do is, once I generate an animation and a look that everyone likes, I then render out an element that's going to be used in compositing. And these are standard elements that will be used over and over again for multiple shots. And once we get a buy-off from that, it goes to 2D, and they take it and composite it into the shot, make it live in there.
Our lighting team, which is one person, Jason Yanofsky, sets the task of creating what all these surfaces look like. What's the floor look like? Well, in this case, it was a marble texture, so from the set, we take a picture of the actual marble and then start to build that into our structure.
We tried to produce as many cameras as possible within one environment to where it would actually still physically work. What we did is actually broke it up into several lighting layers. One of the things that we did in order to make our end result much more flexible is render all these things in separate layers.
We have a gentleman, Marcus Trahan, who builds the cave for us. The actual, what's that cave look like? What's the textural quality of that cave? That gets thrown into the mix.
Another thing I do here is generate atmospherics. And this right here is for the intro of the temple shot. And this helps blend it in. It softens edges, it sinks it in, it binds everything together.
The layers of all this then get handed to our compositors. And what compositors have to do now is make all these things work together and look as though they're part of the same scene.
The first part of this temple here is all computer generated, 100% computer generated. There is nothing that was actual set in there. And more computer generated, more computer generated, more computer generated, cleverly made to look like the floor that was actually on the set. Then we go into the lava, and the idea is to have a seamless transition from the lava into the real set. And the idea is we have to find a place where we can merge the two camera moves together so it doesn't awkwardly slow down to almost a stop. And the way we do that is by matching the camera position at a certain frame, matching the camera speed in each direction, and you get this sort of result.
האל הקדוש, אנו עובדים מלאכים בעוצמה רבה, השונים של האל.
We've really tried to push what we think we can do, what we think we can pull off, and I think by doing so, we're doing more than what our budget allows.
And because Dean gets it and likes to work directly with the artists, we had a direct conduit, and that's why our shots look like they spent 10 times the amount of money. It's because we worked so efficiently at what we were doing. Every single person at every workstation is the best in the world at what they do. I'm convinced.
We get the big feature results just by brute force and talent with our staff and the people we hire. And at the end of the day, yeah, we did it with just a handful of people.
I have been very impressed with the quality. I was more old school. I was so thrilled at the tone of this movie and so thrilled to be doing it because I think this is the new wave.